Before we start, the name is at the top of the screen. The count that she married did not even look at her. Her days were filled only with the repeated insults of the servants. However, no anger or sadness rose up within her and her heart remained heavy. She wondered why was this happening. What was she? A voice echoed within her. Her real self. Two girls walk into her room and immediately fix their eyes on the bruise on her face. One of them asks why her face looks worse than usual and if their father hit her again. The other wonders if the injury came from their mother this time. Their voices carry a touch of pity, not for her, but for their parents, who, in their view, have to endure Ram's existence every single day. Ram, 20 years old, a former commoner, and the eldest daughter of the House of Ivoire, sits silently as one of the girls settles beside her. The girl remarks that Ram has always been weak-bodied and useless since the day she was born. She points out that Ram has never stepped beyond the walls of the mansion, that she is naive, ignorant of the world, and still unable to find a man willing to marry her. She calls Ram servile and faint-hearted. The second girl chimes in, her tone flat and dismissive, calling her plain and gloomy. The first one then reaches out, pokes Ram's cheek, and comments that her strange green hair and gloomy face look like no one else in the family. The second asks why someone like her is even their older sister. Ram shuts her eyes, her chest tightening as their words sink in. Deep down, she believes they are right. Every day she continues to be blamed by her younger sisters. Her father uses violent words and throws things at her. Her mother lifts her hand against her when they are hidden. She is the only one who eats meals alone. Even her clothes are all hand-downs. In chorus they call her a faint-hearted coward and she doesn't resist. She wonders if people would usually cry and be sad over the situation. But she doesn't know what to do. For some reason, her heart doesn't move. Having her parents love like her younger sisters and dressing beautifully are probably splendid things. But to her, something far more precious exists. Her sisters hiss slices through her drifting thoughts, dragging her back to the present. They sneer that she never listens to what they're saying and that this is exactly why she's so slow. Ram notices a speck of dust on her sister's shoulder and instinctively reaches for it, but her sister slaps her hand away. Her voice turns sharp as she demands to know when Ram was given permission to touch her. She snaps at her, calling her a witch. Witches are humans who have magical powers since birth. The majority of people without magical powers fear and hate those who have them. She is also one of those witches. But the only thing her magic can do is make a small light. Being a witch only gives them more reason to hate her. And the power she possesses is useless. She recalls the words thrown at her, that she's not only a useless daughter but also creepy, someone they don't even want near them. Ram is starting to believe she's of no help to anyone. But that changes when their parents, eager expressions lighting up their faces, announce that she's getting married. For the first time, there's a moment where she can finally be of use to the family. She is to be the second wife of current Mercur. The only conditions that the account presented is that the wife should be a witch and it's perfect for someone like her who has nothing else. Ram doesn't know if she can be happy about the sudden news. Surprise and confusion occupies her heart. The sisters' faces light up with envy. One of them asks why someone like Ram is marrying the count, insisting that they would be far more suitable for such a match. The sisters' faces twist with envy. One of them asks why someone like Ram is marrying the count, insisting that they would be far more suitable for such a match. Their father turns to them and tells them to calm down, reminding them that they've already heard the conditions. It may be the house of the count, but it's a strange, unsettling place, a gathering ground for people with magical powers. Even so, he didn't object. The count's household has promised to give them a large sum of money in addition to taking Ram in. All the nobles who had daughters at marrying age swarmed the count, who lost his wife at an early age, and while everyone was being pushed away, having been told they have no uses for daughters with no magical powers, the father was able to get Ram accepted through his hard work. From what he heard, it is just for him to carry out his duty as a noble, and since he wants an obedient wife, it's even more perfect for Ram. He reminds his other daughters he is a cold and ruthless count. A wife is probably a mere ornament for his home. And when it is their time to marry, he will find a family that will take care of them properly. Ram listens to everything, though a warm marriage is something she hardly dares to hope for. She reminds herself to be grateful that father even managed to find her a place to marry into. She's not like her younger sisters, she is a. Before she can finish the thought, her mother grips her shoulder tightly and asks if she understands. She tells Ram to listen to everything the count says, to avoid angering him, and to stay quiet and obedient no matter what happens. In her mother's eyes, Ram is just a faint-hearted ram, a coward. Later, her carriage arrives at the house of the Count of Mercur, a mysterious family where people with magical powers have become the Count generation after generation. This is the only place in the country where witches and wizards live. As she steps out of the carriage, she catches the sound of people whispering that the Count hasn't even shown up on the day his new wife arrives. Ram thinks even when they met briefly after the marriage was decided, they hardly exchanged any words. She was too scared and nervous to even get a good look at his face. As she's escorted to her room by a maid, her thoughts wander. Having grown up without any education, she's at a loss for what she's supposed to do. But she wants to at least be useful in this new place. The maid gestures toward the room and tells her to rest, yet something about her doesn't sit right. The maids were the daughters of distinguished Viscount families. They admired the Count, and they turned hostile towards her, who was to become his wife. Before leaving, the maid tells her that she's a distraction to their work and shouldn't step out without permission. The maids united and mistreated her, and soon other servants also started mistreating her one by one. Her husband, the Count, was busy every day and had no interest in his wife, whom he only obtained to fulfill his duty. Nothing had changed from before. She has met the Count since she met him before getting married. She wonders if he even knows about this situation. She doesn't even know if he's knowingly ignoring the situation. The behavior of the servants as well as the way the Count treats her. For some reason she cannot be angry with them. It's like her heart is always sleeping. As she drifts towards sleep, she hears the maids' whispers. They wonder why she's sleeping again and why the Count even brought her here when he clearly doesn't care about her. They speculate it's probably because she has magical powers, but according to the rumors, her magic is, their voices trail off into hushed whispers. Then one of the staff approaches her and says they want to know about her magic. Even though they serve her, they deeply regret never trying to know her powers. They all want to witness the powers that earned her the title of Countess. She knows they're toying with her. They all know she doesn't possess any remarkable magic, but still, she forces herself to try to summon that light. They watch with amused giggles, whispering that even a candle is more useful than what she can do. What a difference from the last Countess. One day, a maid enters with a sugary sweet smile and announces that she has good news. The Count is returning to the mansion for the first time in a while. Then she leans closer, her smile twisting into something unsettling, and asks Ram if she can speak to her husband about making her a concubine. Since Ram has a weak body and can't do anything for the house, the maid says the least she can do is introduce him to a woman who can bear an heir. When Ram hesitates, the maid grabs her hair and tugs hard, her expression curdling into a sneer. She calls Ram indecisive and inconsiderate, jeering that her own husband won't even glance at her. Isn't it embarrassing to call yourself a countess? She spits. Suddenly, the maid shoves her, snarling that just looking at her is irritating. Ram crashes against the wall and crumples to the floor. In that moment, a familiar thought seeps in, why can't she do anything? She reminds herself why, because she's the useless Ram. The cowardly Ram. The faint-hearted Ram. But then her eyes fly open. She pushes herself upright as if something deep inside has snapped back into place. Her magic bursts around her in a sudden flare of light, wrapping her in a radiant glow. She remembers. She is not a faint-hearted countess. Elsewhere, a man trembles in the Count's presence, saying he cannot believe that he swept the entire territory of demons by himself. The Count doesn't bother acknowledging him. His gaze cuts past the man like he's no more than an irritating fly, and he directs his attention to his attendant. What's the next request? The trembling man tries again, his voice buzzing in the Count's ear as he mentions that his daughters have been longing for the Count's return. The attendant steps forward, explaining that their invitations have never ceased, even after the Count took a new wife. The Count's expression hardens as he replies that it was a marriage he never needed, only a way to silence their relentless persistence. The attendant clears his throat and points out that the flood of invitations has finally quieted, suggesting that it might be time for the Count to share a meal with them again. The Count pauses, his eyes narrowing slightly, and asks if the attendant truly thinks so. The attendant answers that he does, reminding him that while he has fulfilled his duties as a wizard, he must also uphold his responsibilities as a Count. The attendant then reminds him he's still going home after a long time away. He hopes he can take the time to rest there. A farewell to Ram's miserable, groveling self. Because her true self is a legendary witch from 500 years ago whose stories are still told today. Aurora I Brusis. Put simply, this is her reincarnation. She feels like she finally woke up from a long sleep. Her magical power courses through her body from head to toe. The missing pieces were inside her the whole time. Now that she has regained her powers and memories, she won't stay as her faint-hearted self. The head maid snaps at her, demanding to know what she's mumbling about and asking if hitting her head on the wall has made her lose her mind. Aurora slowly turns and meets the maid's glare with calm, steady eyes and says that if the maid intends to apologize, now would be the time. The maid startles, taken aback by the unexpected boldness, but quickly gathers herself. She spits out that Aurora is a useless girl and raises her hand, scoffing as she asks if she hasn't disciplined her enough. Before she can land a blow, Aurora strikes first, her fist cracks across the maid's face, retorting she is the one who hasn't been disciplined enough. The maid goes flying, and Aurora blinks, stunned. She only meant to slap her, but clearly, she used more strength than intended. Ram was too weak, there wasn't anyone who would conveniently protect her for free. Nothing will change unless she stands up for herself. She won't tolerate being their doormat. This is her true self. Her gaze falls on the maid lying unconscious on the floor. A quiet sigh escapes her as she wonders how shameful it is that she let a woman like this torment her for so long. Her heart aches, and her once elegant dress is smeared with dirt. This is not how a countess should look. But then she remembers she has magic. With a flick of her hand, her dress mends itself, fabric smoothing and colors brightening until it looks as good as new. Her control over magic is flawless, it's the outside world she knows nothing about. A recluse all her life, she realizes she needs to gather information before she can truly take charge of this household. She steps out of the room and begins walking through the mansion's halls when a voice calls out behind her, "They can't have that, madam." She turns to see the young butler, who looks at her with thinly veiled annoyance. He tells her she shouldn't wander around on her own, it only adds to their workload. Aurora tilts her head, feigning innocence, and asks why the mistress of the house needs the butler's permission to walk through her own home. Then, without waiting for his answer, she sweeps past him with quiet confidence, saying that she doesn't need an attendant and he need not concern himself. Shocked, he whirls around, demanding what she just said, and orders her to return to her room and stay there like she always does, threatening to report her to her husband if she disobeys. She responds coolly, telling him he can do as he likes, which only makes him snap that if she continues this defiance, she'll be divorced and her family will suffer the consequences. She stops, turns to face him with a cool, unreadable gaze, and tells him to deliver the message right away. If her husband wants a divorce, he's welcome to it, and he can make sure both he and her family hear it directly from her. She couldn't care less about her family, who uses the money they got from kicking her out for whatever they like. The butler's composure finally snaps. He storms after her, barking that she's going back to her room whether she likes it or not. He reaches out to grab her, but she catches his wrist first and, without much thought, twists and sends him flying over her shoulder. The butler sails through the air with an undignified yelp before crashing face first onto the polished floor. Again, she didn't mean to use that much force. It's been too long, her senses are still dull. Then the sound of steady footsteps fills the hall, and the Count appears, his gaze immediately falling on the scene before him. The current Count Mercur, responsible for all the duties in the country concerning magic, a ruthless and brutal man and Ram's husband. The butler scrambles upright, pointing at her with wild indignation as he cries out to the Count, accusing her of disturbing his work, resorting to violence, and even acting as if she were some kind of god. The Count responds with a mild, almost indifferent "Oh." Aurora quickly bows, greeting him with practiced grace and welcoming him home. Then, turning to the butler, she calmly warns him not to stir up trouble, pointing out that running to the Count over every minor issue is hardly appropriate. She adds that he was the one who grabbed her arm aggressively, and all she did was shake him off. The Count, already losing interest, begins to walk away. Over his shoulder, he remarks that managing the house and disciplining its servants is her responsibility, after all. In the next instant, Aurora disappears from her spot and reappears right in front of him, making him halt in surprise. She looks up at him with a sweet smile and says that since he's entrusting her with the household duties, she'll make sure to do her best. And then it is her turn to walk away. In the study room, Mercur thinks his wife is acting weird. Managing the house is the wife's job. Ever since he told her that, she actually started to manage the house. All of his wife's maids were sent home. Most of the servants were also replaced. Apparently she threatened the remaining servants, saying that should they step out of the line, she would kick them out as well. He wonders exactly what is happening. He did not think his faint-hearted wife would act in such a way. He had let his guard down because he thought she was quiet as opposed to his previous wife. He finds himself thinking has been putting on an act this whole time. But her faint-heartedness did not look like an act at all. Should he do something about it or wait and see? His attendant calls out to him and asks if something happened. He admits it is about his wife. The attendant says he heard the countess working hard to manage the house and there hasn't been any trouble though, so it's fine. The count lets out a quiet sigh and admits that's true, but before he can say anything more, his attendant says he understands that checking on her is probably necessary. If the count is too busy to go himself, the attendant offers to handle it. The count quickly agrees, trusting Hugh to take care of it. On the other hand, Aurora sits with a cup of tea, practically glowing with satisfaction. She got rid of all the annoying maids and she feels so much better now. She wonders how was she able to endure them this whole time. Even without the maid, she has no trouble getting dressed. If she uses her magic, she can wear even complicated dresses easily. Aurora enjoys a lavish breakfast, feeling genuinely pleased with herself for firing the cook who used to serve her only leftovers. She's lost in thought when a familiar voice breaks through, someone wishes her a good morning. She looks up and recognizes the man as the count's attendant, the one who's always by his side. She asks him what he's here to say. He explains that he's heard she's been managing the house recently but assumes she must be eager to step outside by now, so he's decided to act as her guide and asks if she wouldn't prefer that he show her around. Aurora raises a brow and asks if the count sent him to spy on his own wife. He smiles smoothly and denies it, claiming he simply wants to be of help to her. She beams back at him, a little too brightly, replying, "Whatever you say." She doesn't trust him in the slightest but decides to give him a chance and tells him to give her a tour outside. Once outdoors, he suggests they visit Canon in the villa first. She agrees without hesitation. She's been wanting to meet the child too. Ever since their brief encounter before the marriage, the maids have constantly reminded her that the count has forbidden her from meeting him. Canon is the count's son, an adopted child. He is not blood related to the count. Faint-hearted Ran always liked children. She even pleaded with the maids to let her meet the son. That is how much she cared about him. In the end they told her Canon doesn't want to meet the countess and she stopped asking. She guesses that was their way of tormenting her. They arrive at the school where the children live and study. Hugh explains the first floor is used for classes, while the upper floor serves as their dormitories. At the moment, there are 10 children in total, ranging in age from 6 to 15, with Canon being the oldest. Noticing the puzzled look on Aurora's face as she takes it all in, the attendant offers to explain the purpose of the school. Within the school, children with magical powers gather from around the country. They live together while learning to control and use magic. At 16 they leave the school and start their work in different places, but they are considered as part of the House of Mercur. And the most excellent students out of them become the next Count Mercur. Teachers and jobs like Hugh's are chosen from here. The most promising child right now is Canon. She asks if that is why Canon is considered his child. Being the head of the Mercur family is a dangerous role that involves a lot of fighting, so the heir must be decided early as a precaution. That is why the heir is chosen not by blood, but by their abilities. Count Charles Mercur, the current count, was also chosen in the same way from that school. Hugh points out even if a child were born between Count Mercur and his wife, they would need to become more powerful than Canon to become the heir. She deadpans she sees, while thinking none of her business. According to history books, people have begun to lose their magical powers, so those with them are increasingly rare. After her death in her previous life around 500 years ago, people with magical powers slowly ceased to be born and the social status of witches and wizards began to drop. Adding to that, she has heard of no other family outside the Mercur family claiming lineage to those with magical power. Even if some people hide their magical powers, there are only 10 students from around the country. She thinks what a difference it is from 500 years ago. It's highly unnatural for something like this to happen. She wonders what exactly happened. Hugh asks her if she's tired. She replies not at all and wants him to tell her more about magic. She needs to find out how different the magic of today is from the past. He tells her in magic there is fire, water, wood, lightning, wind, soil, light and darkness. These are the 8 attributes, and people with magical powers can use only one of them. Surprised, she asks only one attribute. Hugh replies yes, even the count isn't an exception. She asks Hugh what is his attribute. He replies his is light. She thinks the basic attributes haven't changed, but what changed is one can use one attribute per person. He leads her to a nearby classroom where the students practice magic and explains that the oldest three are currently in the middle of a lesson, Canon included. He moves to inform the teacher of their arrival, but Aurora stops him, saying she doesn't want to disrupt the class. She just wants to observe. Together, they quietly lean in and peek through the doorway. Aurora watches intently, thinking this is the perfect opportunity to see what kind of training the children receive these days. The first thing she notices is a dark classroom and instantly feels bad for the children who are trapped in here. It has changed largely from before, when children learned magic from playing outside. Hugh says the teacher is his colleague from the school as well. And right now, they're training to control their powers. She repeats the word control under her breath, and Hugh explains that the students are practicing how to condense their magic to its absolute limit and sustain that form, a fundamental exercise he once had to endure as well. To Aurora, it looks dull, and she can't help but wonder if this is truly the standard method of magic training these days. Her thoughts are cut short when the teacher notices her at the door, warmly welcoming her and asking what brings her here today. Hugh whispers that there's no need to stay hidden. Aurora steps forward with a polite smile, apologizing for the interruption. She explains that since she was feeling better, she decided to take a stroll around the family grounds and thought to check in on Canon. Canon turns briefly, gives her a single glance, then faces forward again. She interprets the gesture as mild annoyance, understandable, considering she hasn't visited in months. But what unsettles her more is the faint darkness she senses from the people surrounding Canon, a similar unsettling aura to what she felt earlier from the maids and servants. Suddenly, all the children shoot their hands into the air, voices overlapping as they eagerly ask to see her magic. Only Canon stays silent, his expression unchanged. The teacher says now everyone seems delighted by her visit and asks if she can be an example for the students and show them her magic. This flow of events, it's always the same, she thinks. She doesn't know about the children, but the teacher probably knows about Ram's poor magic skills. And to say that just shows he wants to embarrass her. How brave of him. With an easy smile, she agrees. She tells them that she will show them the kind of magic that comes from the control they were all practicing earlier. In the house of Mercur, one's social status is decided by their magical ability. Magic isn't just a scale. Real magic is more fun. In the blink of an eye, they find themselves standing in a vast stretch of greenery. The sudden change leaves even the teacher speechless as a butterfly flutters past his face. Aurora calmly explains that she's maintaining an illusion within a space supported by light magic, and that this is what happens when different types of magic are combined. The entire class is frozen, eyes wide, mouth slightly open. She tilts her head and asks if they do not like it. She could have made it bigger, but they need to be outside. Canon stares at the scene with a dumbfounded expression, unable to believe what he's witnessing. Hugh, on the other hand, is practically buzzing inside. How could she so effortlessly use a kind of magic they've never even seen before? He can already imagine the Count's reaction. The Countess is no ordinary woman, he thinks, barely containing his excitement. Later that night, heavy knocks echo through Aurora's room as the Count's voice demands her to open the door. She cracks it open, frowning, and asks why he's come so late. He replies curtly that he's here to talk. Her thoughts bristle, how dare he try to barge in at this hour? And she tells him she doesn't think there's anything to discuss. He calmly insists otherwise. Realizing there's no stopping him, she peeks through the gap and claims she isn't feeling well and needs to rest. But he suddenly forces the door open and strides inside, saying it won't take long. He demands he show him her magic. Show me your magic. That is what her husband, Charles, said when he pushed into her room. She had never known and still doesn't know a lot about him. And honestly, she doesn't have a good feeling about him. He is someone who left his wife alone, no matter how badly she was treated. She's rather indisposed to men like him. Even now, he pushes into her room and speaks to her selfishly. He must have heard that she used magic in the school. He says he never knew she could use magic outside of making small balls of light. She replies it must be because her condition has gotten better. He says that in that case, she needs to show him some magic. She retorts she won't be ordered around. His tone hardens as he reminds her that she's his wife. She replies that the marriage was for appearances, wasn't that her only role? He then points out that he still supports her family financially. She meets his words without flinching, saying he doesn't have to. It's not as if she cares what happens to them. Suddenly, A small smile curves his lips, and she freezes for a second. Why is he smiling? Everything she said should make him hate her. Yet he calmly says that despite everything, he still takes care of her as her husband. Something in her snaps. She asks if he means locking her away in a room and feeding her leftovers. She continues, listing the endless drills with the maids, the bruises, the sleepless nights when servants screamed outside her door demanding to be made as mistresses, and the injuries she sustained while desperately trying to protect herself with magic. He stares at her, stunned into silence. Judging by his reaction, he must have not known about the treatment she was made to endure. He might have thought that he was actually taking care of her as a husband. But that doesn't matter anymore. She bluntly tells him that he must hate a wife who does nothing but complain, so he should just divorce her. She declares that she can survive anywhere, no matter where she ends up. Turning away with a strange lightness in her chest, she thinks it's finally settled. If she pushes him this far, he'll surely agree to a divorce. But instead of anger, laughter bursts out of him. Her head snaps back toward him, confused, as he murmurs that he likes it. Her brows knit together as she asks what he means, wondering if he's joking. He says she shouldn't bother holding back. He never planned to divorce her in the first place. In fact, this conversation has only deepened his resolve. She stares at him in shock, stammering a confused what. He calmly explains that he had misjudged her. He never imagined she would argue to a count like this. She's far more interesting than he initially thought. She snaps that she wasn't arguing, she was simply stating the truth. And, as she's made clear, she doesn't like him. With a tired sigh, she tells him to leave. He ignores her dismissal and coolly reminds her that divorcing a noble, especially in his family, isn't easy. They'd need the king's permission, so she should abandon the idea. She jerks back, stunned. Why does even divorce have to be this complicated? She has no desire to make an enemy out of the king. Then, as if to seal his point, he adds that Canon would be disappointed to lose his mother. His words hit their mark, making her pause. Even if they are not blood-related, if his mother suddenly went away, Canon would be shocked. She lowers her head, forcing out that she will give up for now but makes it clear that she has no intention of truly giving up on divorcing him. From outside, all she hears is his laugh. Standing just beyond her door, he thought to himself, what an interesting woman. The next day, Aurora begins her exercises, thinking just as she expected. It has been such a long time that her senses have numbed. No matter how much magic she has, physical strength is still important. She must regain her strength so she can survive after the divorce. She tries to hover in the air but collapses almost immediately, utterly exhausted. Her magic is powerful, but her body is weak and unprepared. As she sits up, a small voice calls out, and she looks up in surprise to see Canon standing there, addressing her as mother. Despite being adopted, he has never called her like this before, and the age difference, she is 20, he 15, only makes it feel more unusual. She knows she has to act as his mother and asks what he is doing and if he is looking for something. Canon compliments her on her magic from the day before, saying it is amazing, and apologizes sincerely for how rude his teacher and classmates have been, which strikes Aurora deeply. It is the first time anyone has ever apologized to her. She smiles, telling him not to worry. Then he asks where she learned such magic, and she replies that she learned it by herself. He gives a nervous smile, as if unsure whether to believe her, so she explains that her body has always been weak, that she stayed in her room studying but never had the chance to actually use it, and that even her parents never knew because she couldn't show it. Canon nods thoughtfully and she realizes he finally believes her. After a little pause, he asks if she would show him that magic again. She agrees, taking his hand and placing it with hers, saying they should do it together. Just as she thought, the magic flowing through him, as well as his training and knowledge, are not an issue. Given his talent as well as ability, he should have no issue handling attributes outside of water. So why is it that in this age people are only able to perform one type of magic? She looks up at him and tells him he can do it, the same magic, and even use a method that takes advantage of his affinity for the water attribute. He insists that even the teacher couldn't use magic like that. She says didn't he come because he wanted to learn her magic? His face reddens, but she continues, advising him not to worry about the small stuff. Using multiple attributes at once might be unstable, she explains, but what matters more is having a clear image in his mind. Suddenly, a tree appears beside a large stone, and she points it out, saying he did it. He is talented. He is distributing his power well, and the scenery looks complicated, but it still looks like a tree and a rock, a unique perspective. He looks nervous thinking she's very honest, and even if she tells him to have a free image in his mind, he has never taken that kind of free training. The only things they have trained them in are attack and protection powers. Not this magic that looks useless at first sight. The only things he could think of are the tree and the rock in front of the schoolhouse. It's far from what Mother showed them, but he did it. He could do it, too. He had never known that this kind of magic existed. Looking up at her and catching her smile, he can't help but wonder to himself, who is she? His first impression had been of a woman was harmless and at least better than his previous mother, but that changed the day she performed magic at the school. And even now, she isn't thinking of herself, she's focused on teaching him. She asks when he gets out of the schoolhouse, and he replies that he doesn't often, he isn't allowed. She suggests that they should go out together sometime. He hesitates, reminding her that he isn't allowed. She mumbles so he needs permission. It seems that time has finally come to use her powers as a countess. He thinks there is no way that could happen. No one in this house, except for his father, has any real power. But he wouldn't want to ruin her move. He glances at her and says he just has a question about that magic she taught him. She exclaims of course. He admits her ways are different from other magical theories, but what kind of theories does she have? She asks about what? This magic? He then asks what book did she read about this magic? She replies she doesn't remember. It must have been some book 500 years ago. He stares at her, agape, and blurts out 500 years ago. And then quickly tries to correct himself, asking if she forgot where she saw it. He admits that he wants to read the book she read, making her sigh softly. She tells him he can just ask her anything, and she will answer. Though her parents threw the books away, she remembers everything that was written in them. Surprised, he asks, all of it? She nods yes. That was about the only thing she could do when her body was so weak. She also believes that he's amazing. He masters magic so quickly and he is so willing to learn. However, he believes his magic is still unstable and he can only show simple images. She insists she is one of the talented ones. He softly says, but that isn't enough as the heir of this family. Father doesn't really acknowledge him, he's only the heir because he has the best grades in the school. He believes he will be replaced the moment someone comes who's more talented than him. That is the teachings of the House of Mercur. She grumbles he's the worst and decides the next time she sees him she will put him in an illusion and make him embarrass himself. Canon shouts out, Mother startled, thinking she had called him the worst. He isn't the kind of man to stand by quietly just because she is a woman, and he fears she might be in danger. As she strikes the air in frustration, Canon quickly turns, holding his arms protectively just as his father appears, looming above them. She freezes as Canon, in a desperate voice, insists that Mother was only trying to be considerate of him. She looks up just as Charles holds out a letter, explaining that there's a party she is expected to attend. He adds that the invitation specifies they must appear as husband and wife and that the award ceremony for his demonic beast subjugation will be held at the castle. He had told the king there was no need for such a thing, but the king wouldn't listen. Aurora glances at the letter, thinking how annoying it is. She cannot say she has any fond memories of the past parties. The former ram was left helpless and alone at a gathering of aristocrats. Unsurprisingly, she was unable to conduct herself to their expectations. After that, she didn't receive even a single invitation again. Even if she were to attend the party as she is now, there's a high probability that she would still end up isolated. She doesn't want to go to a party like that. She tells him she doesn't think she's too feeble to attend the party. He suddenly pulls her up in his arms and murmurs that is quite a shame. If that is the case, he will pick her up and carry her around the venue himself. Though she seems sickly, if she still has the energy to embarrass him with her magic, he thinks she will be fine with the party. She averts her gaze and mutters that eavesdropping is cruel enough to warrant divorcing him. He scolds her not to say such things in front of their child, but then pulls her closer and whispers that there's no need to be anxious. This time, she will have him as a proper escort. She finally nods, saying she understands. If all she has to do is appear, she will. He asks if she won't run away, and she reassures him she isn't running. She even feels herself looking forward to the day of the party. Then she notices Canon watching them with a worried gaze and thinks it isn't good for couples to argue in front of the child. The Count turns to his son, asking what has come of the training he's undergone at school. When Canon hesitates, the Count presses further. With that mindset, does he really think he can become the next Count? Aurora watches silently, thinking that maybe this is exactly why he has singled Canon out. Aurora understands what Charles is trying to convey, but at the same time, she recognizes Canon's genuine desire to learn magic. She quickly steps in front of Canon, saying he is fine as he is and can still become a capable count. Charles' eyes sharpen, and he demands what authority she has to speak like that, insisting he won't allow her to pamper Canon. She retorts that he came to her because he wanted to study her magic, that he's always been diligent, and shouldn't he be allowed to do so occasionally. Charles abruptly cuts their argument short, saying he's returning to the school, apologizing for leaving it, and runs off. Aurora demands what the point was of going through all that trouble to drive away his own son. He ignores her remark, leaning closer, asking where exactly she learned that magic. She wonders when he started paying attention, and, just to spite him, says she learned it through self-instruction. He scoffs, reminding her that she was the sickly daughter of a weak baron who was treated poorly at home. She mutters that it was only because of her father's business that she had access to books on magic. He observes her with a gaze filled with suspicion. She realizes she wants a turn at this interrogation as well. She says she only visited the school for a single day, so perhaps it isn't her place to comment, but she can't help feeling pity for the students, burdened under constant pressure in such cramped conditions, training until they can't even smile. She reminds the Count that Canon is still only 15. He shrugs, saying it's unfortunate, but rigorous training is part of their duty as individuals aiming to become the next Mercur. Things cannot be changed easily. Still, he admits that the magic she demonstrated earlier was impressive. The effects may seem simple, but it requires simultaneous mastery of multiple spells. He hadn't realized multiple attributes could be combined until he heard her report from his attendant. Her eyes sparkle as she asks if he doesn't think it's neat. Rather than having them have such depressed faces while tuning their magical power, trying out all sorts of magic makes for a much more fun class. When she finds him thinking about it, she thinks perhaps he is a more understanding conversationalist than she thought. Although they had not talked much at all until now, it seems he's willing to hear her out as long as she is patient in her persuasion. Maybe she could try the same approach when asking for a divorce. Just as she opens her mouth to speak, he looks away and mutters that he's not going to divorce her. She starts to counter, but suddenly a wave of dizziness hits her. She nearly collapses, but he catches her. It feels as if all her strength has drained from her body. Confused, she wonders why. Her earlier magic shouldn't be taking such a toll. She can hardly comprehend how fragile she has become. He lifts her in his arms. She blurts what does he think he is doing. He teases it would be an honor to carry her back to her room. She retorts she can walk there by herself, thinking if it were not for the situation she would have escaped by now. As he carries her to the room, she thinks it's okay, he is just being like this because she is new. Eventually the novelty will wear off and he will lose interest, and that's when she can finally divorce him. He asks if she is really lost in thought while he is personally carrying her. She retorts what a terrible thing to say to his wife, which she isn't feeling well, they should divorce. He sighs and mutters good grief, always this clamor about divorce. It must be her favorite word. He announces that they have arrived, and she exhales in relief, thinking she's finally in the clear. Her relief evaporates, however, when she realizes they aren't in her room, it's his. She can't believe how carefully he's laying her down in his bed. Before she can react, he climbs on top of her. She stammers in panic, "What?" He asks where all her earlier vigor has gone. She grumbles that if he wants the bed and he's sleepy, he can go sleep somewhere else. He leans closer, his voice low, saying he's not foolish enough to fall asleep so easily in front of his wife. Her previous life was that of Aurora, a great wizard without rival. A situation like this could be solved with a single spell. But now her exposure to men is non-existent, not even the second week of her new life, which she has lost. Charles pulls back, shocked that she fainted. Even though she is his wife, it was only out of impulse that he did something such as pinning her down. He's fully aware that such behavior is uncharacteristic of him. From the start, he had never been particularly interested in relations with the opposite gender. His previous wife was like that too. Now that he speaks of his previous wife, she would take advantage of his busy schedule and splurge with his money to her heart's content, and even had affairs with the house chamberlains and servants. In the end, she became entangled in her lust and was stabbed to death by one of the servants. Since it would be a scandal if the truth came out, her official cause of death was listed as illness. By then Charles had learned his lesson and had no desire to remarry. However, his position as Earl and head of the house wouldn't allow him to be single. And so Ram was invited to be part of the House Mercur. The eldest daughter of Baron Ivoire, Ram Ivoire was sold away by her parents, a woman with a faint presence and only a small amount of magical power. But then in reports from Hugh, he found out she was able to handle multiple kinds of magic. She manipulated light, water and wind to create an image of a blue sky meadow in the classroom. Hugh also told him that the previous maids and servants were known to terrorize Madame, and it seemed this was true as well. For meals, they gave her scraps and raw garbage. The maid sold off her dresses without even asking, and she was also prevented from seeing Master Canon despite her concerns for him. His attendant told him it was true what the madam told him, or rather, she was even treated with more cruelty and coldness than she said. Hugh believed though she might be gentle by nature, but the recent changes in her behavior must reflect that she has lost her patience with her treatment. Charles wonders if that is really all there is to it. There's something about the current Ram that cannot be summed up so easily. Now, being with his wife gives him the same sense of exaltation as standing on a battlefield. The more Ram dislikes his teasing, the more fun he has and the more his urge to do increases. And divorce is out of the question. Be that as it may, he has no intention to lay his hands on someone unconscious, and it is no fun when the partner cannot respond. Besides, he doesn't want to think about having a child of his own to leave behind. He has had enough of that mess in his own life. He doesn't want more. Flashes of memory flicker through his mind, but he tells himself it's useless to dwell on them. His thoughts are interrupted when he hears her mumbling in her sleep, and inevitably, his mind drifts to her. Ram hates him. Looking back on his own actions, he's aware she's fully justified in that. But still, despite that, Ram is waiting to meet him head-on and confront her for what she believes. Surprising the ever-calm Hugh and even drawing a faint smile out of Canon, she has breathed new life into the manor. It seems she is just that kind of girl. He has started to believe with her here, maybe things can finally change in the blood-soaked house of Mercur. Or at least that is what he thinks might happen. For now, he simply watches her, content that she is sound asleep. The next morning, as Aurora prepares for the day, the maid asks if she needs any assistance, but Aurora assures her she'll be fine. Today is the day of the party, and it's the first time she has dressed like this. She had no idea about the dress, yet Charles had put together a complete outfit for her. She wonders if it's a bit too flashy, but the size is perfect. He personally ensured everything was properly measured. It's clear he truly cares. When she meets him, he offers his hand, saying everything is ready and they should go. Taking his hand, she reassures him she won't run away. He tells her it is not that and reminds her he said he would escort her, didn't he? And that concludes the video today. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Leave a comment if you want another part.